Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on any matter that is not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll proceed. Tonight we are going to hear from the three elementary schools, Pine Grove, Newbury Elementary, and Salisbury Elementary, regarding their school improvement plans and the budget impacts of those school improvement plans. And to explain the process a little bit in more detail, I'm going to ask Mr. Farmer to do that.
Thank you. Given that television cameras are rolling, I think it's important that everybody understands how this meeting fits into a series of meetings and how decisions are made. Over the next 3 evenings, including this evening, a school committee will be receiving presentations in terms of school improvement plans and associated budgets, and we'll also be hearing from officers from the central office about their programs and responsibilities. Technically, clearly the budget is the responsibility of the school committee, and the arrangement that we have is designed to help the committee understand how budget proposals link to the school improvement plan. And that this is an arrangement that we've been running now. This is the 4th year that we've done it. Approval of the school improvement plans as such is my responsibility. But I think it's very important that the school committee know about them and see how they fit in with the how they're aligned with the district improvement plan. So what I'm expecting is that the principals are going to be ready to go, ready or not in terms of television cameras. They might have, I don't know, done the hair differently if they'd known they were going to be on television. I certainly would have combed mine more carefully had I, such as there is these days. And that at the end of the school improvement plan presentation, committee will obviously ask questions for clarification. Have you thought about what you mean by, and so on, similarly with the budget. And each school has about 40 minutes for its presentation. Following this series of 3 meetings, the school committee will have a morning workshop on Saturday the 25th of this month, where they will mull over everything that's been heard over these 3 days and give some initial guidance to the administration in terms of the shape of the budget that we will then be preparing. On the 5th of February, the school committee will meet to look at a very first draft of a tentative budget and give further guidance. Then it will meet on February 12th to formally approve a tentative budget, which will be transmitted to the three towns. In due course, we will also be holding a public hearing in which citizens from the towns can come and talk direct to the school committee to give their views on the way that the school committee budget for the next financial year is taking shape. I hope that's enough by way of introduction.
I think that's fine. As Mr. Farmer said, 40 minutes has been allotted to each presentation this evening and tomorrow night and Wednesday night as well. And the first school on the agenda tonight is the Pine Grove School. Christine Nealon. Yeah, we're good with that. Sure. That's what's been allotted. You don't have to.
Okay, so good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present my school improvement plan and my budget. I'd like to introduce Liz Butler, who is the co-chair of the Pine Grove School Council. Other council members include Elizabeth Commonell, library media specialist, Mary Ellen Moreland, special education teacher, Amy Tressler, parent, Katerina Simonoff-Dobbs, parent, Elena Rosnov, parent, and Hermaine Gordon, community representative. She works at the Raleigh Public Library. Our council met 9 times over the course of the last school year and 3 times this year so far. We meet monthly and during the development of this document, sometimes twice per month. This plan outlines specific strategic goals followed by an action plan that outlines how we plan to meet these goals. This basically is the same plan that I introduced last year. It's a 3-year plan. However, our school council did make significant tweaks and changes to the action steps towards the back of the plan. So what I'd like to do is talk to you about reminder of what the goals are. Our charge as a school is to fundamentally increase student achievement. In Goal 1, our focus is to reduce the proficiency gap between students in the aggregate and high-needs subgroups by 1/3 over the course of the next 3 years. If we're going to increase student performance, we must diligently focus our school on one critical factor that has the greatest impact on student achievement: classroom instruction. Goal number 2 is the focus to become proficient or exemplary on Standard 4 of the professional culture portion of the educator evaluation rubric, which will lead us to becoming a more dynamic professional learning community. A professional learning community is characterized by common purpose, collaborative inquiry, and collective responsibility. As a professional learning community, we seek to answer the following questions. What do we want our students to know and be able to do? How will we know our students have learned what we have taught them? And what will we do for students who are not making appropriate progress or who already know what is about to be taught? In Goal 3, our focus is to strengthen our parent and community engagement by having the focus of our volunteer hours be geared towards student learning and achievement. The various PGS communities work together in order to support and deliver the ideal Pine Grove graduate, a student with high academic achievement, strong sense of self, with powerful critical thinking skills, and an ingrained desire for civic participation. The various factions that make up the larger Pine Grove community are the student body, the faculty, and the staff. What I'd like to get into now is to share with you some of the things that we have worked on with regards to the plan over the course of this year and towards the end of last year. Pine Grove School developed and implemented a model in which each grade level participates in a professional learning community meeting every other week. The mission of our PLC is to work in collaborative teams to continually analyze and improve classroom practice to ultimately impact student learning. Focus areas tend to be on mathematics and ELA, and the PLCs are facilitated by the literacy and math coaches. So every grade level has a PLC every other week. We started that this year, and Liz, I don't know if you want to chime in on any of that, but we look at student work, we look at data, sometimes we use the PLC as an instructional support team process. What else? That's about right. But what we're really excited about is the fact that we've been able to have teachers come together on a more frequent, regular basis to do all of the areas that I just stated. Pine Grove School is in year 1 with the utilization of literacy and math coaches. Research shows that schools and classrooms with the highest reading and math achievement are those that are supported by literacy and math coaches who spend most of their time working with teachers, and that's exactly what's happening this year. It's still a work in progress, though. Teachers continue to implement Keys to Literacy across all disciplines. Keys coaches are providing support for PD to our Pine Grove teachers. Pine Grove School continues to improve our RTI WIN time. WIN stands for What I Need, for all struggling students as well as our high-ability learners. RTI, as you know, is the use of research-based instruction and interventions to students who are at risk and may be suspected of having specific disabilities. A 3-tiered pyramid model is implemented when providing RTI. And we're in our 3rd year, and actually they say it takes 5 to 8, sometimes 8 years to get it really good. We're constantly tweaking how we do provide the RTI time and the WIN time, and our PLCs that we have every other week with our grade levels is also another opportunity to talk about interventions and strategies and flexible grouping. PGS educators have worked collaboratively to strengthen the protocols for developing analytical and evaluative processing using data literacy, including MCAS analysis. Flexible grouping is being used in several grade levels. Intervention, extension blocks, and lesson study have been implemented across several grade levels. Differentiation instruction continues to be strengthened among educators, with several teachers participating in the DI study groups with the district DI specialist. Several educators continue to refine their practice using the responsive classroom model throughout the day, as well as attending workshops over the summer. Teachers at Pine Grove continue to participate in a number of professional development activities, including Keys to Literacy, helping students with psychological disorders, benchmark assessment system, coaches training, data teams, curriculum mapping, response to intervention, differentiated instruction, independent study, and technology. All professional development activities are aligned to the district improvement plans. Several community gatherings continue to take place throughout the year, with an emphasis on appropriate school conduct, bullying and harassment, and a continuation of character education in which students are introduced to monthly themes. This year we were really excited. Several of our themes we added a little bit of a different twist. We had friendship, self-control, and self-control was done by the 6th graders, and that was very interesting to see because we know 6th graders need to have self-control. Honor, generosity, moral control, patriotism, wellness, personal best, and in June we'll be doing team spirit. We also continue to unpack the educator evaluation rubric at our staff meeting on a monthly basis. So we pick an area of the rubric that we want teachers to unpack and brainstorm and go through, and at the end we do a group out share. So we're really hitting that goal number 2 of the school improvement plan on getting every staff member to be very familiar with our educator evaluation rubric. Enhancing parent and community involvement. Bi-monthly principal coffee talks continue to be popular among parents. Topics are focused on issues in education, assessment information, and popular education books for parents. Training programs and parenting classes are underway for parents. The 2nd series is scheduled to begin this month and will focus on ADD, ADHD, and executive functioning. The parent series is being conducted by Margot Lacey and one of our Pine Grove parents. Her name is Donna Graham. She's a licensed clinical psychologist. And last year they did a series of parent trainings, and this year we're continuing part 2 of that. And they've been very well attended across the district. Improving school facilities. I wish I had more information for you on that, but we know what the situation is for Pine Grove. As you know, a statement of interest was sent to the MSBA in January of 2012. We continue to do building walkthroughs with the selectmen, MSBA officials, administration, and custodial staff. And new last spring was the creation of a Pine Grove School Technology team. We met twice last year, and we've met once this year, and we have a meeting coming up this Thursday. Other necessary conditions for success in this plan include, as I mentioned before, differentiation of instruction. Differentiation instruction is an instructional theory that allows teachers to structure learning environments that address the variety of learning styles, interests, and abilities found within a classroom. We continue to look at multiple measures of data. If we want to get different results, we have to change the process that creates the results. Just looking at student achievement measures focuses teachers only on the results. It does not give them information about what we need to make things happen differently or to get different results. We continue to provide quality professional development. A school system's most important asset is its teaching force. Continuous high-quality professional development is essential to the goal of high standards for learning for every child. And if you note at the back of the plan lists the updated professional development plan that's taking place this year for Pine Grove School. And we also continue to work on safety and discipline. That's, again, part of our school improvement plan. Research has shown that parents, teachers, and school staff say that school safety and order are their high school priorities. I hear that quite a bit, given what happened last December in Newtown, Connecticut. So parents it's in the forefront of their minds. Educators know that other efforts to improve schools will not be effective without an orderly, safe learning environment. We continue to meet with our school safety committee once a month. We plan practice lockdown drills. We've had one this year so far, and we are planning 2 more. We actually have one coming up. I think it's the end of this month, right? Another lockdown drill. And we continue to meet on a monthly basis with our local municipalities that join our meetings very regularly. Moving on to MCAS. The charts on page 16 of the plan do not fully reflect the steady gains that are being made towards the 6-year DESE goals, particularly at the high needs, low income categories, where the school gained between 2.8 and 4.5 CPI percentage points. The 3.3 percentage CPI decline in our science scores are an area of concern. Some of the data suggests that further training for teachers and support is a critical element for those teachers who have not previously taught science, so we are looking at that. At the same time, fifth grade students made considerable gains in mathematics last spring, with 84% proficient or higher and 82% student growth percentile. This reflects the fifth grade teachers' identification and incorporation of new student-teacher resources for mathematics. We piloted a program called Go Math, and the fifth grade teachers basically think that that is the reason why their students did so well in math last spring. And we're hoping to continue with that as the district looks to be piloting new math programs. Over the coming year, we'll be focusing on how we can increase mathematical success, particularly at the third and fourth grade levels and with all of our SPED students. Any questions on the school improvement plan before I get into the budget? Jane?
When does all this stuff take place? When you first meeting with the teachers?
The PLCs?
Yeah.
The
So it's
PLCs,
during grade levels or?
PLCs are they occur Monday through Thursday from 8:20 to 9:10.
During prep?
Nope, that's the prep period for specialists, for art, music, PE, so it's not a teacher's prep time. So we have the IAs that have a schedule. They go in and they cover particular classes so that the grade level teacher can attend the PLC. So we don't provide a whole lot of SPED services during that time because the special ed IAs are covering so the teachers can attend the PLC. So it's a 40-minute meeting from 8:20 to 9:10.
Did you say every week?
It's Monday through Thursday, so, for example, kindergarten met this morning, first grade meets tomorrow, correct? Fourth grade's tomorrow, we switched the schedule. So it's every other week that each grade level has a meeting.
So like first grade.
I got it. Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious, it's like, once again, time.
Well, we provided the
When
time.
does all this happen?
I didn't want to take a teacher's planning time away from them to do this, and it's very difficult to do it after school or before school with all the other meetings going on, so this was the best way. And this actually came up at our leadership committee last spring. I brought the idea to leadership, and I sort of put out different scenarios, and this was the best one that I was able to sell to the teachers, as long as they weren't getting their plan period taken away from them, and I can understand.
Oh, wow, okay. Thanks.
Does anyone else have any questions? Robin?
Not a question, just a comment that I'm so happy to see that piece about character education themes and lessons, that there's more to life than smart kids, and I just think character is huge. So I love the different topics you talked about incorporating.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Could
Questions?
I ask a question?
Of course.
I apologise to the principal. I've been out of circulation for 2 days, and normally I would have given you the courtesy of letting you know I might be asking a question. I have a question about your reflection piece, where you talk about flexible grouping being used in 3 grade levels. Am I right in thinking that you are intending, with the consent of your colleagues, to develop that further?
Absolutely, and I might ask Liz to speak a little bit about that. But that has been something that it's not every teacher's comfort zone to do that at the moment. So what we're looking at doing is really refining how we provide the RTI win time, and that's where we're looking at doing. And I know first grade last year did a lot of flexible grouping.
We did a lot of flexible grouping, changing within the 3 classrooms that we had. This year, we're doing a little bit more individualized, I guess you could say. I have a couple of children in my classroom who go to a different classroom during win time for flexible grouping, so it's not big groups like it was last year, just different kids needing different needs and making sure that they're meeting with a different group too.
So how do you decide which children go in which group?
We look at the data that we have of the assessments. For example, the children that are leaving my classroom need more reading instruction, working on retelling and comprehension, so that group is working on that particular skill. Other kids are working on math skills. They may need more help with story problems, so we have a different group working on story problems. So it all depends on, the data that we have from the different assessments we've been given.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have questions? Suzanne?
Jane's with
Oh, Jane. Does anyone who hasn't already asked a question want to ask a question? Paul?
I don't have a question so much, it's just a comment. I like the 3rd goal about community involvement. I'll be interested to see how that shakes out.
Thank you. We're working on it.
No, she was pointing to you.
Oh, so do these children go to a different classroom within the same grade level, or, okay.
My goal is to have every grade level eventually doing some sort of flexible grouping, but right now it's primarily first grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade. Second grade does, two of the three teachers do it in second grade, so it's not 100%, but we're working on that. Moving on to the budget. So in an effort, the big request that I've asked for is a 0.5 social worker. So in an effort to meet the social and emotional needs of some of our challenged students, Pine Grove School is requesting a half-time social worker. While our school counselor interacts with all children individually and in small groups, acting as a sounding board and listening to their day-to-day activities, it's imperative that we employ a half-time social worker. The addition of a half-time social worker will allow this person to work with our students with social and emotional difficulties and their parents, and will be assigned a specific caseload on student need. Since I've been at Pine Grove School, the population has changed immensely. I cannot begin to tell you how many children and families we have in great need of having this position in our building. The issues that we're dealing with, the custody issues, the family situations, it's incredible what I've seen in the 5 years that I've been at Pine Grove, and this year has been, I would say, huge in terms of those types of needs. So that's why I'm asking for the 0.5 social worker. Something that I know that Beth Yando from Newbury, the Newbury Elementary School principal, is going to talk about. Unfortunately, I'm going to steal your thunder a little bit, Beth, but not really. We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about a program called MobyMax. That can actually, it includes grades K to 8. It finds missing skills with placement tests. It remediates with targeted practice. It's a computer program, web-based. It creates individualized learning paths. It monitors programs and progress continually. It retains the systematic review and reports on Common Core standards. What we're looking at doing is ordering 60 Chromebooks with storage carts for mobility and additional instructional technology supplies that are needed. The Chromebooks will be used during grade level win blocks to provide teachers with a resource to help differentiate instruction. MobyMax is a program that would be able to do this, and that teachers would be able to use not only during the win block, but also throughout their teaching during the day. And that is why we have one of the big increases to the budget in the technology line. It was increased from 5,000 to 12,000, I believe. I'm sorry, from 5,000 to 17,600. That was the big increase. The other areas of the budget are in red, and I'm on page 6. And I wrote the rationale for wanting to increase my principal supply material line, principal professional expenses, as at $600 now, but $600 barely gets me payment for belonging to MESPA, because I think it's actually $685, and I also like to belong to ASCD, and there are other things that I'd like to subscribe to that are helpful in my role as the building principal, along with Margot Lacey, the assistant principal. Professional development substitutes, I've added $2,000 to that line, because if you see underneath, I've added $5,000 to be able to send teachers. Not only do they participate in our own professional development that we provide for them, but every once in a while it's nice to be able to send a teacher to something that's outside of the school, a conference, something that is really part of their own professional, individual professional development plan that they have to work on. So that's for why there's an increase for $5,000, and that used to be in the budget, and that was cut from the budget, I believe, in 2004 when I was principal at Salisbury. So I would love to see that back again, to be able to send teachers to other PD outside the district. An increase in regular ed supplies, just because of different things that teachers need to make their classrooms run smoothly. You all know that teachers pocket a lot of their own money to put supports in their classroom for supplies and materials, so that's why I've increased it slightly, and Jane's looking at me because she knows exactly what I'm talking about. The instructional materials and books, I've asked for a $5,000, roughly just under $5,000 increase for that, as we begin to continue to pilot other materials to supplement our investigations math program, such as the Go Math piece. And we also had, this current year, we had to order some new social studies texts for our 5th graders because we didn't have enough, and the original text is no longer in print because the book was 16 years old. So just little things like that that add up over time. There's a decrease in my special education supply line. If you recall, last year I added $12,000 because I had to purchase the equipment for the hearing impaired. Well, those children are going along to the middle school, so I believe Alan McRae will be requesting funding for those children for those classrooms. So there's actually a decrease. But I did add, I believe the SPED line used to be 2,000, and I've added an extra 1,000 to make it 3,000, only because we have SPED teachers and our speech and language pathologists that need to order testing protocols, and when you run out, those materials become very expensive. $2,000, in my opinion, is not a lot of money for a SPED line. I talked about the instructional technology supplies for the MobiMax and the Chromebooks. And then maintenance repairs, I've increased it a few $1,000s. As you know, the boiler in Pine Grove, the 2 boilers continue to need to be serviced. The dishwasher in the kitchen continues to need to be serviced. These things add up, and I believe last year I went over the $47,000, Brian, and you can, right, but it wasn't my fault. It's an old building that needs upgrades.
Like Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel.
Right. So my overall increase to what I asked for, or what the budget actually took place last year, was $20,891, and I don't think that's a lot of money, given the size of Pine Grove School.
Does anyone have any questions regarding the budget presentation?
You all know what the capital,
Oh, I'm sorry. You want-
that's fine. The capital improvement requests are, I've been asking for the same stuff pretty much year after year, so it's all in the back of the budget. And I didn't realize that we were the only school without a generator and the only school without a science lab. Very interesting. I learned that last week.
Robin?
So my question might be directed to Brian rather than you, Christine, but with regard to the capital needs, my question is about the landlord versus tenant issues, and which, like, does the boiler come down to an obligation by the town versus the district? It seems to me I highlighted a lot of the capital improvement that I, upon looking at them, think are landlord requests as opposed to us as the district. So then my question would be, I know you're meeting with the selectmen and there's a committee put together. So what percentage of those requests really aren't going to end up in our general operating budget?
There's a document in the binder that Patty gave you tonight, a capital improvement plan that is 16 pages of much more detail about capital expenses, but part of the narrative there describes the fact that it needs to be teased out a little stronger as far as in the regional agreement, as far as the landlord tenant. Christopher and I have talked about that. We talked about it with the district communications committee that was reviewing the regional agreement, and there's certainly a need to tease that out. It's worked. There hasn't been a major, $100,000 boiler that's blown up, but as a general rule, Newbury and Rowley own NES and Pine Grove, and they've come through when there's an issue. We work. Chris Walsh works with the town, and they've generally split the bill, foot the bill completely. So I think there's certainly a need at this point that the stopgap measures and small potatoes repairs on Pine Grove, I think, are throwing good money after bad. So there's certainly some decisions that need to be made. And I think there's certainly been some interest in the towns recently.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of selectmen coming to start the discussion. It seems to have peaked back in January of 12 when we filed the statement of interest, and then it kind of disappeared for about 18 months. But we did meet with Bob Murray and Dave Peterson, who would like to get that discussion going again. So
I just don't want you to misunderstand. I want these repairs to be
Oh, yeah.
made too, but
Absolutely.
I want them to be paid for appropriately.
Yes, I totally understand that. I think if they would just settle the firehouse, we'd be all set in Rowley. That's
you're a
their-
resident. You can say whatever you want.
But that's what they told us when we met
Absolutely.
with them.
Yep.
So I'm not saying anything that they didn't. That's what they're working on. That's their priority, and I respect that.
Dina?
I have a follow-up question to that because Rob and I had the same concerns you did. In fact, I had emailed Brian Saturday night asking that very question. Looking at your budget line for maintenance repairs, Chris, I mean, it's $50,000. It's less than $3,000 of an increase. Is that really a feasible amount? Not that
No.
I'm asking for, that's kind of what I'm looking at, is I
Probably
want to
not.
know what the true amount might be, whether it's our obligation or, as Robin pointed out, the town's obligation. Because I think the public needs to know that, and I agree this, putting our finger in the dike, those days are long gone.
Right. It all depends. It's situational. I mean, we could go 6 months and not have a problem in the kitchen, or sometimes I get emails every other morning that the walk-in freezer wasn't up to temperature and we had to call whoever we call in, or it's really it's situational. So it's I guess for me, because
But I guess what I'm asking is, do you find annually you're spending more than that?
I believe I did last year. Do you have those figures, Brian?
Well, last year, there was a total expenditure of $93,000, but that was end-of-year funds where we agreed to do the carpeting and replace with the tile.
For so many classrooms.
Which turned into an asbestos removal job.
Right.
So that was a $18,000 assumption that turned into a $32,000 job. So if you back out that $32,000, you spent roughly $61,000.
Okay. So I'm off by
Previous
11,000.
years, you were more in the 40s to 50. So it is, and it depends on the year. I mean,
Right.
we could set aside $80,000 and nothing could go wrong. I know that's funny. But we could also set aside nothing and have something implode. But I think that if we're talking about the majors, as far as structures within the building, I think the town will be responsive because again, if we're putting it in the budget, the towns are splitting it and paying for it, versus if it's not in the budget, that the towns have been receptive to date when something like that does come up. So
Thank you.
I think the 50 is a reasonable.
Okay.
Any other budget questions? Jane?
The chair just reminded me, the principals put in their budget what they feel they really need. But I'm kind of wondering, I was disappointed to see, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be very wrong, but I don't see any comments or requests for specialists. I know we're, in the budget crunch we're in, and content curriculum is incredibly important. I've always had this thing about the arts. And to this day, and I could be wrong because I've been gone for 3.5 years, but I still think we have at least art and phys ed teachers bouncing between at least 2 schools.
My art teacher's full-time at Pine Grove this year. That was new this year.
So you have full-time art.
I have a full-time, yes, I have full-time art. In terms of phys ed, we don't have physical education on Friday afternoons, so I have one teacher that teaches Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then a Salisbury phys ed teacher teaches Thursday. We actually don't have phys ed at all on Friday. Just the way the schedule worked out.
Is it because the way you had to design your schedule, or because due to budget constraints, we don't have an art teacher, a phys ed teacher, and a music teacher, and a computer teacher, and a librarian in all 3 of our elementary schools?
Well, I can't speak for the other 2 schools, but the library media specialist is full-time at Pine Grove, the art teacher is full-time at Pine Grove, the music teacher is full-time at Pine Grove, technology teacher is full-time. The only thing that's not full-time is phys ed.
Okay.
Could I interject that it does vary from school to school in my proposals, making sure that all schools are treated equitably in this respect is in there. And I'm glad, Mrs. Byrne, you mentioned the scheduling issue, because if you've only got access to a teacher for part of the week, that controls very much the rest of the schedule. So it's not only a question of do we have, in some cases more art or more music. It can also therefore mean more planning time for other teachers and greater flexibility when the principal is scheduling teachers and students.
Oh, good. So the handouts Patty gave us tonight, that's part of your address on Wednesday, so I won't bother the other two principals. Excellent. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions on the budget at Pine Grove? All right. Thank you very much, Christine.
I just want to say, I hope people don't think I'm not being supportive of my other two colleagues that are going to present after me, but it's my birthday today and I have dinner plans. Is that okay if I don't stay?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Christine.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to you.
I want you all to know I'm 29 again.
Yeah, there you go.
Shows.
Thank you.
Bye, have fun.
We could sing yours for, was it Thursday or Friday, Deb?
Mine was last Thursday.
Last Thursday.
We missed it. No. Next, we will hear from Beth Yando, Newbury Elementary School.
Baby.
Good evening. Is this close enough? Can you all hear me? I have Assistant Principal Amy Pascarella with me because we're both new this year, and I have to say that we formed a nice partnership and we worked together as a team, and so it was important for her to be here with me tonight. If there are any questions, she's just as capable as answering as I am.
I'm not sure that microphone is picking up your voice as well as it could. No, I think it's on.
Just tap it, that will tell you whether it's on.
I speak really loud.
Oh,
Lee. It's an adverb.
okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Much better. I couldn't hear myself, so. Good evening. First, I'd like to thank the Newbury School community for welcoming Amy Pascarello and me to NES. We both feel fortunate to be part of a community that has a strong focus on students' academics and at the same time devotes so much energy to the well-being of our students. Second, I must share how dedicated and professional the teachers at NES are and how their expertise greatly impacts the many achievements at NES. And the partnership that we have at NES between the administration, teachers, and parents is crucial to ensure that each student reaches their full potential. And I would like to acknowledge our PTA for their support they provide our teachers and students. I'd like to recognize our school council members. Patrick Mulligan is a parent and a co-chair. He's unable to be with us this evening. Rebecca Cook, parent. Charlotte Dowd, parent. Balin Wheeler-Haas, parent. Mariah Lucia, teacher. Nancy Nicholson, teacher. Jessica Raymond is a special education teacher. Liz Rake-Croft, technology specialist. David Toth, parent. And David Williams, teacher. Our school council has met 5 times this year, reviewing our 2 goals and action steps to be sure we are making progress in meeting these goals. A major focus has been exploring FlexBlock at NES. FlexBlock is a time during the school day where each teacher provides students with appropriate interventions or enrichment, and this is happening in classrooms K through 6. We have high standards at NES, and we want to be sure students are being challenged and provided with necessary supports so this can happen. We are all responsible for the achievement of our students at NES, and our teamwork and collaboration makes this happen. Now I'd like to address our 2 goals on our school improvement plan. Our first goal is a literacy goal, and it states 90% of students will read with comprehension and write effectively for purpose at grade level. We've had some progress in this goal. The work at NES and PLC's professional learning communities, where we work in grade level teams and vertical teams to examine student work and data, is the driving force in improving student achievement. And the work that the teachers do together, looking at the data that we have in informing their instruction is working at NES and making a difference. The District Development Plan and District Literacy Plan is a guideline and outlines the necessary actions we need to take at NES to meet this goal. We continue to use data meetings at NES to analyze student work, strengthen our core instruction, that's our Tier 1 instruction, if you look at the response to intervention motto that happens in the classroom. And we use practices that support effective interventions. That's our Tier 2 and Tier 3 that can happen in the classroom in small group instruction, and also some students are pulled out in small group instruction. This year we've focused on keys to literacy comprehension, and it's been implemented in classrooms K-6. And throughout the year, as I've done my walkthroughs, I'm very pleased to say that that was professional development that was provided to teachers before the beginning of the school year, and they are indeed using it. Kim Crota came over one day and we did walkthroughs in our grades 3 and 4, and I have to say I was very proud to be the principal when Kim commented on how well she was and how impressed she was with the instruction. So that professional development that happened K-12 was brought back into NES and is being utilized. Keys to vocabulary strategies was also part of that PD, and that's being implemented in grades 3 to 6. In our school improvement plan, we have ELA coaches. Part of the coaches are keys to literacy coaches. At NES, the teachers really didn't like being called coaches. They felt that it gave the perception that they were kind of the experts, and they wanted to be viewed as collaborators. So we call our coaches at NES keys to literacy collaborators. And they have planned professional development and provided the necessary support to help implement these strategies in the classroom. And we have devoted time to look at vertical alignment between grade levels, and this discussion has been powerful. A lot of those discussions in the vertical grade level work happens at our PLC meetings once a month. And a lot of those meetings, the majority of them, I planned with a professional development committee, but also our keys to literacy collaborators lead the development. So teachers are being true leaders at NES in providing the professional development for their colleagues. The focus on FlexBlock has been to explore and pilot various interventions and collect data to see if our interventions are working or need adjustments. Oftentimes, interventionalists or classroom teachers will provide intervention to students. And we've talked a lot at NES this year that they really need to collect data to see if those interventions are indeed working or if we need to make adjustments. And if the interventions aren't working and we've tried them, and we know when our students aren't making the kind of gains, it's okay to stop and try something else. So we've been spending a lot of time at grade level team meetings talking about that, what's working, what's not working, how can we help you to make adjustments so the students are making the most gains possible. Something new this year in the district are the common writing assessments, and after those were, the one in October was implemented, our teachers sat down and looked at the data, and we shared writing assessment data at one of our PLC meetings. And we noticed as a school that the area of conventions was very weak. There was a trend K right up through 6. So we decided that we would put together some non-negotiables in conventions. It really wasn't anything we put together. It was actually taking the Common Core and making posters for each grade level to have in their classroom. So the criteria of what we were expecting the students to do in writing around conventions was clear to them, was clear to the parents, and clear to the teachers. And teachers were also given a little flip book with each grade level what the non-negotiables were, so they could see what should come before and what should happen after. And that's something that we handed out to the teachers in January. So they're in the classroom and we're really focusing on that. It was important for us to take those, the writing assessment and use it to inform our instruction. And that's one thing that we identified that we would work on this year. In looking at the ELA MCAS data from 2013, we can celebrate. The student growth percentile in grade 4 increased from 46% to 62%. The student growth percentile in sixth grade increased from 68.5% to 83%. And I just have to say 83% is high growth and high achievement, and the work that is happening from K to 6 is responsible for that. We do have a very strong ELA program in sixth grade that incorporates social studies, and it's making a difference. But what's happened prior has really prepared those students so when they get to sixth grade, they perform that well. The student growth percentile in all grades increased from 56% to 63%, and we are above the district goal of 55%. The student growth percentile in fifth grade did decrease from 55% to 52%. When you look at the MCAS CPI in all grades, we had an increase at NES of 0.8 points. The CPI in all grades was 91.2, and by 2015, our goal is to have the CPI at 95. So we're making some gains, but we still have more work to do in that area. And in grade 5 again, the CPI did decrease in grade 5. That is our current group of sixth graders. We took that data at the beginning of the year and put some different interventions and things into place to address the decrease in their MCAS scores. And we are currently 2.1 points behind for our ELA target. The work of our reading interventionalists and reading specialists is instrumental in the results at NES. The continued work and support they provide students and teachers is invaluable. Our continued refinement of FlexBlock and interventions to improve our overall ELA scores and the firm belief that all students can obtain these high standards is instrumental to our growth in ELA. So as you can see, we've spent a lot of time this year really looking at FlexBlock and making sure that what students need, they're getting at that time. And as I said, we have FlexBlocks from K to 6. And to decide what our interventions are going to be, we look at our current data that we use. Our second goal is a mathematics goal. 90% of students will demonstrate mathematical literacy and application of mathematical skills and concepts at grade level. IXL, Reflex Math, and MobiMax were piloted in various grade levels to differentiate instruction. These are web-based programs that enable us to differentiate instruction and the interventions to best meet the students' needs. GoMath was implemented in grade 5 because of the results they have at Pine Grove School. Study Island is being used to differentiate instruction. And the role of our math coach this year has been to help teachers plan FlexBlock and utilize the data to plan interventions and enrichment. Oftentimes, teachers are given data and they know that they have to implement some interventions. And our math coach is indeed becoming a true coach. She does work with some students, but the students she works with are at FlexBlock. She's going in and she's helping teachers design interventions to help them look at their data and giving them resources so they can better meet the student needs. And in looking at Math MCAS data we can celebrate, the student growth percentile in grade 4 increased from 50% to 58%. The student growth percentile in grade 5 increased from 36.5% to 45.5%. Our MCAS CPI increased in grades 3, 4, and 5, and our MCAS CPI increased in all grades by 1.1 points. Areas for improvement in math. In looking at our data from 2013, we've made adjustments to our instruction and interventions. The student growth percentile in grade 6 decreased from 68.5 to 51%. That is the current group of 7th graders. Our student growth percentile in all grades remained the same at 50%, below the district goal of 55%. We really didn't have a change in our student growth percentile, so we looked at that. And that's part of the work with the math coach, is to go in and figure out what we need to provide these students with interventions. Math can be a very complex area, and we want to make sure that students are utilizing the skills that are being taught and they can actually apply it. A lot of times students present like they understand the math concept, but can they actually apply it? And I think you see that best in open response type questions, which across the state, there tends to be a trend of that's an area for improvement in most schools, and it continues to be one at NES. And one of the things with Keys to Literacy, the vocab part and Keys to Comprehension, is that those skills that we're providing, a lot of people would think they're for ELA, they go across all subject areas, especially with the vocab. It's helping students organize the question. You can use a top-down web in math, and it also is providing students that in-depth understanding of the vocab. And if they really have an in-depth understanding of the vocab, when they apply their answer in an open response question, they're going to be able to use the vocabulary the right way and really demonstrate that they understand. So that's an area we've been working on at NES this year. The MCAS CPI decreased in grade 6, and our MCAS CPI in all grades was 90, and by 2015 our goal is to have the CPI of 94.5. Flex block interventions have been adjusted, and the work between the math specialist and the classroom teacher is vital to student achievement. And I have to say, at the beginning of the year, Laura Page was out on a maternity leave, and since she's returned, I've been working her very hard. So she's doing a great job. I met with her the other day, and she showed me what she was doing at each grade level, and it's very impressive in the short amount of time. So we really appreciate her there. The school improvement plan prior to this one had two goals, and we kept them on ours as an area of focus because they really are important to students being successful. The first focus area is school climate and social emotional well-being for the improvement of student learning. And this area is really the foundation for learning. And I know I'm supposed to stick to my script, but I have to tell a story that happened today because this really shows how important it is to make sure that when children come to school, they're ready to learn. I was outside the office this morning, and this little boy was walking up the stairs, and he was crying. So I went over to him, and I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "No, I'm not." And I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "I don't have a passion." And I said, "What do you mean you don't have a passion?" And he said, "Well, my homework this weekend was to come to school with a passion." Aww. And I'm starting to think, like, what are we giving for homework? And so I said to him, "A passion for what?" And he said, "Well, you know, after school I'm in theater workshop, and I have to get up today and tell them what my passion is." And I said, "Well, why don't you come in my office and we can work this out." So I did. And he told me, you know, how he enjoyed setting up the stage. And I said, "So you have a passion for helping the show go on?" And he said, "Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I guess I do." And so as I was walking him back to the classroom, he lifted up his sweatshirt and he said, "Ms. Jando, look at my shirt." And I looked at it, and he said, "I made it this weekend." And it said, "Stop bullying" across the front. And it was a tie-dye t-shirt. And he said, "I made one for my little brother who's 4. And I said, "That was so nice." He said, "Because he needs to know that we don't have bullying at NES." And I said, "How do you know this?" He said, "Well, remember at the beginning of the year when the 6th graders put on the all-school assembly and they did the skits around bullying? I remember that, and I want to make sure my little brother knows about that." So I'm like, boy, this is really working great. So I walked into the classroom, and I said to the teacher, "I want you to know that his day started out this way." And a little while later, the teacher received an email from the mother, and the teacher emailed the mother back, and she said, "Don't worry, Ms. Jando has it covered." A few minutes later, I get a phone call from the mother, and I had to explain to her what happened, and she was so worried about him. So my point of the story is that if we don't make sure our students are ready to learn and they feel good about school, then they're not going to learn. And we don't know what students bring into the school each day. And that's one of the things I know that Mrs. Pasquarello and I enjoy. We don't fight over who's going to be at the front door in the morning, but we like to be there and greet the students. We can also greet them off the bus. But it's those little things that impact children that we forget about sometimes. So what we're doing at NES works around social well-being, and the students are learning about it. Another thing that we're doing to really address the social climate and social emotional well-being are our monthly care assemblies. Our first assembly was around developing school rules for NES, which are now posted in all the classrooms. The students can articulate what they are, and each child sign their classroom poster, which is right when you walk in, says that they believe in the rules. And so we talk a lot about that. And as that little second grader understood the importance of the anti-bullying message we're sending at NES, our second assembly that we had was around anti-bullying, and the sixth graders did the whole thing. I asked the students to bring to my office examples of things that have happened to them that they feel like they were bullied. And my mailbox got full, and I kind of went through and figured out the top 3 or 4 themes. I gave them to the sixth graders, and they put together little skits. And the room was completely silent. And so I want the students to know that they're safe at NES, and we take this very serious. And it was great for the older children in the school to really be the role models for the younger students. Something else that's happening at NES is social thinking curriculum, which is being taught by our school adjustment counselor, and the speech and language pathologists are using that in their small groups in their therapies. The school adjustment counselor is actually going into the classrooms and teaching that whole group. So the kids are learning some language and how to react in social situations. To help improve the school climate, a few things that Amy and I have put into place this year at NES is a Monday memo. This is a weekly news that I send out to the faculty and staff where I tell them important meetings. And I've really spent all this year keeping Keys to Literacy fresh. I put a little bit in there, just things to keep them thinking and questions to ask them, because that's really been our focus this year. And when I arrived at NES, I wanted to pick one thing that we could really focus on as a school. And because they had professional development, and because Keys to Literacy and Keys to Vocab can be used across all subject areas, that's really been our focus this year, and it's making an impact. And I have to say, Assistant Principal Pasquarello publishes a wonderful newsletter called The Newt, and it's enjoyed by all. One of the things she does is she profiles different people within the school, which parents have enjoyed learning about the different staff members. And she also has created an NES blog, and I don't know if you've had the pleasure of looking at that, but you know, we need to add it to the end of our email so they can just click on it. That's something we'll have to do, Amy. So she updates it often, and if you join it, when there's an update, you can go on and see what's happening at NES. So she's very good with her iPhone, walking around the school and snapping photos and keeping that updated. The other focus area is our technology integration into the classroom and promoting 21st century thinking skills for student success in the global economy. And a lot of this that's happened at NES is under the leadership of Amy. We now have a technology committee, which she chairs. We had 6 new smart boards donated from the Governor's Academy, and so all our classrooms in grades 1 through 6 are smart board equipped, which is wonderful. And to make sure that they're being utilized, Amy is working with the teachers and providing PD for them as well. We had 20 used district computers donated at NES at the beginning of the year, and we created a mini lab that's upstairs in the 5th and 6th grade wing, but we have all students going up and using that. That's something where MobiMax and the different interventions that we use at FlexBlock, they can go up and use it for that, and they also use it for writing. So it's being utilized this year. So it's great to have those additional computers. And then this past Friday, we had a wonderful PD day at NES. Our key collaborators planned the first part, and then Amy put together a technology focus, and she recruited teachers to do the teaching of the new technology. MobiMax is something that most of the teachers signed up for, and we had a teacher that helped the classroom teachers get their classroom set up for that, and so we could start utilizing that. And the technology, as I said, the increase in use and the enthusiasm from staff is really coming from Amy, so I want to thank Amy for her leadership with that. we've been piloting the following technology options to support FlexBlock this year: Extra Math, Reflex Math, IXL, and MobiMax. So I'm going to start talking about the budget priorities. I don't know if you have any questions about what I've presented so far, or if you want to ask questions after I've gone into
Well,
the...
why don't we see if anybody has any questions on the school improvement plan portion of the presentation? Jane?
Goal number 1, bullet 2, students will score CPI values of 90 and aggregate 92 and blah, blah. Would you explain all that to me, please?
Well, it's the composite performance index that's calculated by the state.
Mm.
And there's a formula, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't have with me exactly.
Oh,
so
I don't care
can't
about
go
that.
through it. But that's how we know if we're meeting our 90%. We have a goal of where we want our students to be, and so we're looking for gains in that, and we did have a 0.8 increase in that, so not as much of an increase as we would like, but we use that to inform our instruction because we know we need to make more of an increase. And it's the whole trajectory that the state has where we need to be to see if we're meeting our target.
Thanks. And so I may have misread this or misunderstood, but is the state, does the state have different numbers for low-income and special education students?
Yes, we do.
All
And I
right.
didn't highlight that so much in here, but we do know that's an area we're not meeting our goals for our special education students. And we didn't have enough students this year to qualify for the low income.
Oh, okay, yeah. I just have like this equity thing, you know. So
Can we just be clear that in a sense these state goals are federally directed, and they don't make a difference in terms of the goal between regular ed students and
Okay.
high need students. The,
All right.
the expectation is that they will all reach 100%. Well, now we have a waiver and the rules have changed, and so it's now about closing that gap by 2017 is the target. So the rules of the game have changed.
we're not lowering expectations,
No, not at all.
becoming realistic.
And we have high expectations for all our students, our NES. Just because they may be special education students, we want them to have as much gains of any students in our building. And if you look at on the school improvement plan on page 20, you can see where the target is. Page 17, 18, 19, and 20 show where the targets are for us with the CPI. Makes it a little more clear.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions on the school improvement plan?
I guess I just have one question. It's interesting to me that the student growth in 6th grade increased for ELA, and you talked about the strong program that incorporated social studies and English, and yet we saw a decrease there for math. Is it, and it's probably not even realistic for me to go back 6 or 7 years, but our experience coming through 6th grade at NES was that there's just not enough time in the day for everything. Jane, you talk about this all the time
isn't
and
enough
how much has to be covered, but there just did seem to us to be a ton of homework in the writing and tons of writing for social studies. All that is great, but to the point where the teachers in math and science felt like they couldn't even assign as much because of the workload. Is that something you're looking at as you try to break down that data, or is that being talked about? It's just the amount of time spent on any given subject seems to me would...
Well, we're always looking at homework and making sure it's manageable. The students work extremely hard during the day at school, and I think another thing you really need to look at are the number of standards that teachers are required to teach. And so I think in our 6th grade program, Greg and Mariah have gotten very smart at combining the social studies standards and the ELA standards. And the way they're teaching, the whole approach is making it easier for students, and there's a connection. And I think with the math and science, you can do that as well. So we're always looking at that. And I think that, math is a very hard subject for students to really own and understand. And as I said earlier, it's really giving them a lot of practice around the application. I know our 5th grade teachers are the ones who started piloting Moby Max, which I'm going to talk a little more about when I present more about the budget. We have found that it does placement tests, and it really gives us good information to drive our instruction, and it tells us exactly what standards need to be addressed with students. So as we researched the different programs, we thought that that would best meet our students' needs, and also really to use interventions in the classroom to meet the students' needs. It takes a lot of times for teachers to plan those because the students, their strengths and areas for improvement are all different. And so one of the things I wanted to help teachers with this year was to give them some tools to make doing intervention a little easier for them, not making everything so difficult and not giving them an additional thing that they needed to plan. Because as you said, time is of the essence, and it can be extremely difficult for teachers to meet all the students' needs if you don't give them the proper resources, tools, and time. So that's something we've been focusing on as well.
Any other questions on the school improvement plan before we move on to the budget presentation? Okay, go ahead.
So a big, I want to talk about our priorities at NES. And I've been talking repeatedly about FlexBlock at NES and the connection to student achievement and instruction. And so with the pilot of mini-based web technology programs, we actually will begin implementing Moby Max in ELA and math next school year. The program has been funded already through 2015 by our PTA. And the Moby Max includes grades K to 8. It finds missing skills with placement tests, remediates with targeted practice, creates individual learning paths, monitors progress continually, and reports on the Common Core standards. And the program can be used with all students. The adaptive curriculum creates a unique, individualized education plan for each student, allowing students who need to be challenged to progress as quickly as they like in providing intervention. The other nice thing that I really liked about Moby Max is we explored it. There's an IEP component, and you can take your IEP goals and link them directly to that. So it's something that our special education teachers are going to be able to utilize as well. And on Friday, when we had our PD, Moby Max was one of the workshops, and I had one of my special educators went back and started kind of exploring the special education component of that to see how user-friendly it was going to be for her and how it could impact her students that she works with. And to enhance the implementation of Moby Max, in my budget you'll see that I'm requesting 60 Chromebooks with 2 carts for mobility. This will provide a resource for teachers to differentiate and inform their instruction. The Chromebooks can also be used for testing of the PARCC assessment in the future. The NES School Council seeks an addition of a special education professional to meet the obligations of students on IEPs. The past 2 years at NES, we've had to use contracted services to support our students with special needs and to help implement IEP goals. The student growth percentages of our students with disabilities are both below the district targets of 55%. The student growth percentile for ELA is 47%, and for mathematics is 45%. This position will be used K to 6 to help meet our school improvement goals. We are fortunate to house the district's ASD program, the Autistic Spectrum Disorder program at NES. And the NES School Council seeks 3 additional instructional assistant positions to support students for our ASD program at NES. The students in the ASD program are integrated for much of the day in the regular education classroom, and that's where we want them to be. We try to include them as much as possible. In order for this to happen, support is needed for the students to be successful. When adequate support is not provided, it impacts all the students in the classroom. This year, there's been an increase of students with intensive needs, and more support is needed to ensure the education and safety of these students. The IA in the classroom has an extremely important role. They support the student, but they also are collecting data for the program teacher. And that data that is collected is used to inform their IEP to see if they're actually meeting their IEP goals. The increase in the special education supplies is due to the increased enrollment of students in our ASD program as well. Oftentimes we find that they need a specialized curriculum and materials are needed to enhance their educational experience of these students. Often many of them are learning in a different way and the curriculum that we have really isn't meeting their needs. So we're finding that we need to get a few more specialized programs. We also are seeking a 0.5 nurse clerical support to help the school nurse with the daily paperwork on students. The ASD program at NES needs additional services from the school nurse due to medications and case management. The daily consistent flow of students in the nurse's office is becoming too demanding for one person to document and to ensure the students' medical needs are met. That's something that's impacted us greatly this year. And we're actually the two secretaries in the main office are helping her with a lot of her clerical work this year with a stipend, but it's something that, that needs to be put in place. That nurse's office, there's students in and out all day long, and every time she sees a student, she needs to document what's happened. And she stays late, and the demands on her are increasing. If you look at the increase in the maintenance repairs by 10,000, part of this, a good chunk of this, around $7,000, and I know this is going to sound kind of silly, but it's for chair glides, which Alan at the middle school told me about. We currently have tennis balls on a lot of our chairs to cut down on the sound. I don't know if you've ever been in a classroom and seen those tennis balls, but they are not very clean, and they collect all sorts of things. And they're just kind of a nuisance. So we're looking for a quick solution. It would be a one-time cost to get the chair glides. They protect the floors. They cut down on sounds. And those students with hearing impairments, it will help. And then the students below, they won't hear the noise as well. Using tennis balls is a great way to cut down on noise, but it's really not practical in the long run. So this would be a one-time expense to get those chair glides on our chairs and our desks. We also need additional funds to cover the costs for the anticipated replacement of the HVAC boiler system. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to present the Newbury Elementary School Improvement Plan and budget priorities. Are there any additional questions?
Any budget questions? You have a question, Dina? Go ahead, Jane says go ahead. Go ahead.
I love the chair glide.
Yes?
Yeah. It's hugely critical. I used to spend about $80 a year at the beginning of school, drag my husband into the classroom, pull off the radial ones from last year and stick on new ones. It's huge.
Thank you, Jane. Dina?
Can we just be clear that the tennis ball thing is to do with children who tend to be asthmatic, that they collect dust. In my last district, I just banned them, not having them at all. But that left the other problems that the principal's been talking about.
Yeah.
I actually have two questions. One is, how many students do we have in that autistic spectrum program?
I have to stop and count here. I should have that. Do you have the numbers right off the top of your head?
12 in both programs,
Yeah.
both program in the upper grade.
Okay. And related to that, the clerical support for the nurse,
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that's a part-time position?
It is. It's 0.5.
And would it be, well, I guess what I'm asking is,
Yep.
would it be, 2.5 days a week, or is it going to be a daily?
I think if that position was approved and we found someone, we would sit down and find the best way to help the nurse. I think daily would be helpful.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Because, I mean, you would not, Emily K. French, she does take her lunch, but usually it's not till around 1:15, 1:30, and it's not a duty-free lunch because she's sitting there and we have kids coming in. In the case management of our students in the ASD program, some of them do have medications that need to be administered, and that can be a lengthy process depending on the student. So she works extremely hard. So it's something that's really needed at NES.
Thank you.
Suzanne?
Just along those lines, is it kids coming? I know she has. I've seen her doing work there. But does she have lots of kids just coming for, like, a cough drop? Like, my kids were nurse groupies, I have to admit. They just,
Yeah.
go see the nurse because she's nice and get a cough drop, I yelled at them a lot, but doing that. But is it that was bogging her down, like the little, like,
No,
pecking,
I
or
would
is it
say
the-
I think the program has been the greatest impact on her because those students often are coming to see her for different reasons. In the case management, supporting the program teachers, but we just have a flow of students coming in, we have close to 560 students and one person dealing with all that. And I don't really see, once in a while, someone will come in for a cough drop, but I'll often be in that area, and if they need a cough drop, I can deal with that for her. I try to go in and support her as much as I can as well. I would say it's more of the paperwork and documenting what's happening with each student, which we want her to do because we want to have that documentation.
Has that changed in, like, the past? I mean, documentation just seems the thing of, like, the day. So has that changed in the last, like, say, 5 years? That the level of documentation has increased, and that our level of liability has increased to have that documentation?
Well, do you want to answer that, Brian? Because you kind of have the background in that position. And
I wouldn't say it's the increase in the documentation. I think it goes along with, as David has presented his budget last year and this year, will again say it's the social and emotional issues that we have just seen explode off the charts. So at the elementary school, the nurse it's a safe place. So what used to be just a cough drop, and sometimes maybe there's a student going down for a cough drop and that's not the real need, and they're talking about a cough drop and they need to just talk. And so I think the paperwork I can't say there's 7 more reports than there were. It does seem like it's expanding. I think there's always been a lot of paperwork, especially for nurses as far as their documentation. But I think the bigger issue is it's not a drive-through or a walk-through or a flyby or a frequent flyer. It's they're coming and they're consuming more of her time. And I think we're seeing that across the board with nurses, with really all staff. So that would be my gut response without looking at the figures.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the Newbury Elementary School budget? No, thank you very much.
okay, thank you.
Curriculum, right? Like,
We're going to take a 2-minute break, Mr. Montanari. Sorry. Sorry.
I mean, this is what frustrated me. I always felt, but I think it was just.
Tried not to touch it.
I did.
That's just like you to touch everything.
I mean, I used to say, how come those first 7, all this, my math and science, but it's now up through 6th grade. Oh, all right. That's why you're, speaking of that. No, I have a nosy question to ask you, but that's like really.
I need you in my classroom. You're so nice.
They should have been done before I put them in the envelopes. I forgot.
Oh, good boy. We can hole punch.
I forgot that we were putting those in binders. Well, he's not here, so I'm going to take this.
Is this? Yeah, this is more stuff, isn't it?
So, I just don't know. I just need I'd like to know what it is.
You have to be patient, Mary. Patient with the hole punch. You know why I know this? 'Cause, my kids are like jamming like
It's
that.
with this one here, I don't know.
No, you can't put that one in.
Think about if they are sign off.
Oh wait, I have one more. I have one piece of paper. Oh, I just put my hole punch on James' cookie. Okay. Oh.
Okay.
I think the timer says 2 minutes.
Remember that time I had to hold up this thing? Jane, remember, I mean, you were there. Remember I had to hold the sign up?
Yes!
And like I kept holding the sign up and someone would talk and I'm like, remember that? That was the worst thing ever. Oh, I hate the sign. Oh, so
Oh, well, you know, go big or go home.
Chair, before you introduce the next section, could I just take the opportunity to recognise that while the discussion today is essentially about K6, the principal of the high school and the principal of the middle school are here listening to this, and that is an expression of the fact that we are working hard to develop an integrated, comprehensive pre-K through 12 system and not simply run a number of separate schools. And I applaud their being here and value it very much. Thank you.
I had noticed that, and that is greatly appreciated. I also noticed that Mr. McGee is here, and he's not speaking tonight either. And Kim's here tonight, and she's just said, I did notice all of that, and I think that's wonderful. Next, we have Mr. Montanari from the Salisbury Elementary School.
Good evening. Let me introduce Martha Tatro, our co-chair, parent representative, here tonight to support and to answer any questions the committee might have. Thank you for this opportunity to share the Salisbury Elementary School's improvement plan. I'd like to thank also the school council members, parent Denise Hudson, community member from the Pettingill House, Tiffany Nigro, teacher Michelle Howard, teacher Deb Dennehy, and I've already introduced Martha, for their investment and dedication to Salisbury Elementary and community. Kudos goes out to Shannon Nolan, my assistant principal, who's in the audience, my SES Leadership Committee, my SES Professional Development Committee, and my SES coaches who have shared their valuable insight and professional opinions with me regarding the SIP. Throughout the past year, Salisbury Elementary School has had much to celebrate. We continue to work closely with Barbara Wilson, and we are in our third year of being in a Foundation's demonstration site. SES continues to be part of the Wilson Implementation Network, and there was a publication in February 2013 on the rtinetwork.org on Voices in the Field about SES titled Building and Sustaining Capacity for Evidence-Based Literacy Instruction, which leads to improved student learning. SES also held a literacy night this past November, and we expected 50 students with their families to attend, when in fact 150 students were in attendance, so that was a good problem to have. SES is a unique learning institution made up of dedicated educators, supportive parents, and knowledgeable students. Currently, 50% of students are living in poverty, while 17% of students are considered homeless. Last year's school improvement plan, we had 3 SMART goals that tied in directly with the district development plan and improving MCAS data. Our goal 1, which can be seen on page 5, by the end of each school year, 80% of the students will be reading at core grade level as measured by the DIBELS and the grade and DRA2 end of the year benchmark assessments. As you can see on page 5 of the SIP, the DIBELS data, we fell short of the goal, but there was improvement. This is at the bottom. For the grade, we reached the goal and then some in all grade levels. For the grade DRA2, grades 1 and 3 did not reach the goal, while K2, 4, 5, and 6 did. However, you can clearly see from the data that there were some solid improvement in every grade level. For example, in grade 3, in the fall of 2012, 36% of students came in reading at grade level. By the time they left their grade, 75% were reading at grade level. Goal 2, by the end of the school year, 80% of students will score core, 80% in number sense, as measured by the Ames Web Pro Math Early Numeracy End of the Year Benchmark Assessment. On page 6, please note that in grade 1 assessment early numeracy has 4 groups: oral counting, number identification, quantity discrimination, which is basically comparing numbers, and missing numbers. Grades 2 through 6 focuses on mathematics concepts and application, word problems, and math computation. Overall, there was much to celebrate. This was a good starting point for SES for using scientifically based research data for math like Ames Web. The 2013 MCAS data is broken down into 2 groups, which I missed on page 6 for the ELA. If we could go, oh, it's right there, sorry. The Composite Performance Index and the Student Growth Percentile are broken down in 2 groups, both for ELA, which is at the top of page 6, and math, which is at the bottom of page 6. The aggregate are basically all students who took the 2013 MCAS. The Salisburyites are students who have attended SES for 3 consecutive years. We find it an excellent way of seeing how well a true cohort grows and develops. This is an idea that I took from Kim Marshall, who's the author of the Marshall Memo and the former principal in the Boston Public Schools. Last year, we thought of Salisburyites of students who actually attended Salisbury since kindergarten all the way through. This time, I looked at the data and thought that with the Salisburyite, if a student was there in grade 2, and by the time they reached grade 5, that is a true reflection on what we have done as educators for that student and family. So I thought 3 years was a fair amount of time to include those students' data. Goal 3, which is on page, I'm moving to page 7. By the end of the school year, 90% of students will be able to identify an adult at school they are comfortable talking to if they have a problem or concern. Ms. Ellen Lincoln, social worker, developed and administered the survey for students in grades 1 through 6. According to Robert Marzano, positive relationships between teachers and students are among the most commonly cited variables associated with effective instruction. If the relationship is strong, instructional strategies seem to be more effective. Conversely, a weak or negative relationship will mute or even negate the benefits of even the most effective instructional strategy. Hence, SES will continue creating and maintaining a sense of belonging. Also to note that students who are living in poverty have no future story. Therefore, their relationship with that teacher has a huge impact. The adjustments and action plan, which will be on pages 7 through 10, basically for the goal 1, it stays the same. By the end of each school year, 80% of the students will be reading at core grade levels measured by the DIBELS grade and DRA end of the year benchmark. The adjustments, which are also on page 7, are included within our professional development plan, which are on pages 11 and 12. Our main focus and adjustments are SES will use Tier 3 interventions, Soar to Success, which focuses on comprehension, and Early Reading Intervention, which focuses on phonics. Both are research-based programs. We will also have a year-long focus on keys to literacy comprehension, writing, and the answer key routine. Monthly, we have the Chief Academic Officer doing walkthroughs with the Keys coaches as well as administration. We have started a study group regarding the answer key routine. And with this philosophy, we have a year-long professional development with any and all school-based professional development. The action plan, as I call the talking points on page 8, basically areas that we're going to improve and measures of implementation on page 8, is that we need to make sure that the lowest readers need to be seen every day by the classroom teacher. We need to make sure that Tier 3 students need to be independently reading every day. We continue with the development of the writing assignment guides, which is really something with the keys to writing, and this is our very comprehensive lesson plan, if you will. Also, when are to be used only for intervention or extension, as well as the classroom teachers being providing the ELA interventions for ELA. Many times when you have intervention in the WIN, you think about perhaps Title I teachers or special educators. Great, everyone has a role, including the social worker and adjustment counselor. However, the classroom teacher can and will provide Tier 1, Tier 2, and possibly Tier 3 when necessary to students. In goal number 2, changing of the wording, we took the word number sense out and added math problem solving skills and computation. So it reads, by the end of each school year, 80% of students will score core. 80% in math problem solving skills, computation, and early numeracy is measured by Ames Web Pro Math end of the year benchmark assessments. Adjustments, which again are on page 7, but ties into the professional development plan. We're focusing in the Ames Web data analysis 3 times a year. That's a huge piece. Focusing in with, especially with math. I'm not married to Ames Web. I've heard a lot about other type of scientifically based research programs. That's the main focus. The action plan, or talking points on page 9, we need to strengthen and continue the implementation of the RTI model with the focus on Ames Web Pro Math. We need to begin and continue to assess and progress monitor students in grades 2 through 6 in concepts, application, and computation. The concepts and application basically are word problems. The computation is computation. We need to continue with the Tier 2 instruction targeting math, computation, and application. WIN is to be used only for intervention and extension, and classroom teachers are to provide necessary math interventions. What we find as a challenge is when a child is below grade level in both reading and math. What do you do with only a 45-minute block of time? And the philosophy is simple. We focus in on the reading first and the math second. The students who read well will test well. The sooner they're able to read at grade level, the better. Goal number 3, by the end of each school year, 90% of students will be able to identify an adult at school they are comfortable talking to if they have a problem. A few adjustments. One, we're going to tweak the data. Example is we had one student who spoke with Ellen Lincoln on a daily basis, and she said she did not have a person, which surprised us. And when in fact that student did not, she thought it was someone else, not the office staff or Miss Lincoln or at the time Mr. McKenna. She just thought it was someone else. So we're going to have to tweak that a little bit, especially for the younger kids. But the adjustments on page 7 is we're going to implement a social thinking philosophy program. We're going to develop an effort and attitude program. We're going to apply for a needs therapy dog, which you've approved thus far to move ahead. And we're going to collect data 3 times a year. Our action plan, our talking points on page 10. We have, as you know, is IST on a monthly basis, IST for academic reasons, but we also have an implementation of an IST behavior team. We also are bringing in implementing Tier 1 social skills lesson in grades K through 2 with our speech and language teacher, Ms. Colleen Poulin, and our new adjustment counselor, Ms. Sue Golden. And we will also use WIN to be used for behavioral interventions. Many times students with certain social skills issues, challenges, you see on any type of grid is 1 times 30. However, any type of intervention to work successfully needs to be 4 times a week. So this would be something that to focus in on with a social worker as well as the adjustment counselor. I wrote down some information regarding the professional development plan, but I feel I've went through that as highlighting the areas. Are there any questions or clarifications on what I spoke about regarding the school improvement plan?
I do have one question. When I saw that you were going to implement, I think you said implement effort and attitude, I always thought that you were doing that already, because everything that I've always seen come out of Salisbury always has that little phrase there. Can you tell me what's different than what you've done before?
We're going bigger. Yeah. We provide bracelets, we provide pencils, postcards. It's throughout. But what we're going to do is we're going to, and came from an idea that was facilitated by Shannon. We're going to have about 8 to 10 staff members looking for students who just put in the effort and attitude constantly. Those students, the saying is 80% of a teacher's time focuses on 20% of the students. We want to focus in on everyone, but we really want to focus in on those 80% of the students that maybe at times we don't say, hey, thank you. You're doing a great job. You're improving. You're a super individual. And we don't say it enough, and we don't give you the attention that you deserve. So we will have specialists, we'll have the secretaries, the nurse, the custodian, myself, Shannon, counselors, the specialists, Ann O'Brien, the media specialist. And if they see something, what they do is they write down the name, and they put the name in like a mailbox or my box, and we collect that. And at the end of the month, we have a huge celebration. However, those individuals who are placed, the names, it can be done several times by several teachers. So it's not put on the classroom teacher, but it's individuals throughout the building. So it's always, caught in the act. One thing we want to make sure that if you're caught in the act for doing something, and let's say you have a bus referral or an office referral, or perhaps your attendance is poor, then we have to talk regarding why, and we can move on from that. But I think that implementing that and really bringing it forward, doing the same thing over and over again sometimes works, but I want to make sure that it's really there, because I do believe that the whole effort and attitude is, the focus on for everyone at Salisbury.
So just as a follow-up, if a student is identified of being caught doing something good or whatever, you said there's a monthly celebration, correct?
Yes.
So the student's name is recorded and whatever their deed was,
By
plus the
teacher,
positive.
it could be helping out a student in first grade. We have grades 4, 5, and 6. I have students who are, we call them Montanari minions, and they are students who help out in grades, first grade, second grade, the reading, math facts. It's just students who are just the leaders of our school. You'll come in and you'll see all the pictures, and they do, from cleaning the cafeteria or helping me, from recycling to reading with students who don't have that adult at home to help with the rocket math. These are the students that people are seeing constantly, and these are the students, and plus others, will be recognized. And once that happens, it will just be a domino effect for everyone.
Great, thank you.
Jane?
Ames Web Pro Math?
Yes.
What's that?
It's basically a quick assessment to see where the students lie regarding math. Like, for example, for reading, you have Dibbles that can help you, and you have the grade, but we didn't have anything scientifically based. Ames Web Pro Math is. It's broken up into as on page 6, early numeracy for first grade, and mathematics concepts and applications, MCAP, and math computation, MComp, between grades 2 through 6. So we can actually see who is at grade level, who's above grade level, who's right there, and who needs some type of intervention. So then what we do is we look at that data and we see what type of intervention that they're receiving during win time. And if they're receiving reading from a teacher or a specialist, whether it's a Title I or classroom, fine. But we know that the student is below average on computation, so we need to find time to improve that. And that would be the challenge.
Is it a computer program?
It's web-based, yes.
So kids, okay, you know, Mrs. Smith's kids go down and do their little thing and
No,
go back
it's not.
to...
We're not there yet. It's what it's like, kind of like think of it as Dibbles,
Yeah.
Ames Web. Ames Web is math. Dibbles would be for phonics. So it's really what we see.
Right.
So they don't go on the computer to go on Ames Web. It's the teacher who does. Kathy
Oh,
Coleman's.
so it's like whole class administered.
Yes, and then we see the data, analyze it, provide proper intervention, do it again in January, do it again in June.
So that's something you purchased,
Yes.
along with our benchmark assessments every 6 weeks, or what are those these days?
Give or take.
I have a question about the Salisburyites, that you said you've gone from students that started in the kindergarten and 2 or 3 years. Are there still students who move in and out, like this particular student moves in and moves back in again, moves out, moves back in again?
Yes.
Are those,
We have, and since the summer of 2013, we have 41 students moving in and 52 students moving out. Sometimes they're the same. It's like the 17% of students who are considered homeless could be, we could have 17% tomorrow, but then in a week we could have 15, and then in a week we could have 20.
I understand that.
Yeah.
The 3 years, is that 3 continuous
Yes.
years? They did not move out, they did not come back?
Right. I just felt we had a student who went to, we started in K-1, went to Haverhill for 2 years, then came back. And that student might have done very well. Yes, we can be credited with K-1, but the other school system can be credited with grades 2, 3, and 4. I want to make sure that the reflection and the growth of the student is what Salisbury has done.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the school improvement plan? Before we go to the budget?
I'm a reader. Okay, as we turn our attention to the SES budget workbook, you'll notice how everything ties together. Our focus continues to be low class size at each grade level. Low class size and quality instruction will have the greatest impact on student learning during Tier 1 instruction of their response to intervention, RTI. Review, we have 4 classroom teachers in grades 1 through 6. We have 7 grade level instructional assistants in grades 1 through 6. We have 2 full day kindergarten sessions. We have 2 half day kindergarten sessions. We have 1 full pre-K session and 0.3 pre-K session. We average roughly about 17 students in both grades, basically grades 1 through 6, 18 students on a half day and 20 students on a full day. For pre-K, it can average anywhere from 12 to 16 students, depending on what their depending on their session, if it's in the morning or the afternoon, if it's 2 days, if it's 4 days. Next year, student enrollment should actually remain the same. Therefore, for personnel budget requests, which are on pages 4 and 5, I am asking for a 0.2 increase. I'll start on page 4, on a 0.5 increase for PM kindergarten. This will allow SES to have 3 full-day kindergarten sessions and 1 half-day session. Students who are at risk who attend rigorous and nurturing full-day programs are more likely to have stronger achievement in basic skills areas and generally better preparation for first grade. Students who are at risk can be categorized as students who are living in poverty and as well as students who are homeless. I'm asking for a 0.2 increase in pre-kindergarten. Currently, there are about 40% of students in pre-K that receive special education and or related services at SES. An additional 0.2 teacher will allow better grouping of students as well as providing more students an opportunity to attend pre-K at SES. I am collecting data of students who have no pre-K experience and how well they do at kindergarten. Right now we have, that I know of, we have 15 students who attended kindergarten without any pre-K background whatsoever, and of course 15 of them are intensive as soon as they come through the door. I'm asking for a 0.2 increase in occupational therapists. OT evaluations at SES have increased from 30 per school year to a projected 45 to 50 evaluations this year. Significantly delayed pre-K students enrolling from early intervention programs have increased from 6 students to 12, all of which require OT services. I believe this information that I am summarizing is also on page 5. Finally, I'm asking for a 0.5 evaluation chair position. Currently, we have one person as a 0.5 ETC and a 0.5 special educator. I'm recommending that the special educator be moved back to a 1.0 and hire a new 0.5 ETC. The ETC facilitates about 125 meetings a school year. 2 to 3 hours is the average time it takes to plan, clerk, organize, and facilitate a meeting. In addition, that individual has to split her time throughout the day to provide specialized instruction to 7 students. To be honest, it just doesn't work, and we can do better. On page 6, regarding supplies and services budget requests, I'm asking for $5,000 for professional development. Ongoing and year-long professional development keeps teachers up to date on new research and how children learn emerging technology tools for the classroom, new curriculum resources, and more. I think we're in a great place regarding professional development, and we're just getting better. $5,000 will just, I think, bring us over to the top. I'm asking for a 10% increase to assist with the offsetting of universal assessments like the grade, the DIBELS, the foundations, the Wilson, and Ames Web. An additional $20,500 increase for 2 Chromebook carts holding 30 Chromebook units. The devices are designed to be used while connected to the internet, which for the most part throughout the school we do have many hotspots, and support applications that reside on the web, rather than the traditional application that reside on the machine itself. Hence, the units can be shared among students with ease. So that would be the goal. On page 7, I've asked for something for capital improvement requests. It could cost anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000 to remodel the SES motor room. The SES motor room will double as a timeout safe room for students who have escalated beyond their control when all other interventions have failed. A timeout safe room is a valuable behavior modification strategy which, when used and administered appropriately, can be an effective intervention. Over the years, poverty has increased, homelessness has increased, and more students are born addicted and are at risk, and safety for all becomes a concern. For example, since September, 4% of my kindergarten students have been hospitalized due to being in crisis, all of which started at school but ended at home. We've worked with all families, and I'm happy to say that all students are back at SES, moving forward both academically and socially. Where more and more students are coming in who have suffered trauma from birth. I began stating that SES is a unique learning institution, and I want to thank you for this opportunity to share this information and for allowing me to be principal of Salisbury Elementary School. Thank you.
Are there any questions on the budget request from Salisbury Elementary School? Dina?
This might be more of a question for Brian, too. The Salisbury's request for the Chromebooks is a little bit more than the other schools, so Brian, I'm thinking that that's just like district-wide?
About 10,500 per cart, so the other two are in error.
So they were low? Okay. I guess my concern, and I know we'll probably get into this a little bit later when we're talking more on district programming, and I meant to ask Chris when she was here, especially with Pine Grove, are we going to have the capability to support these Chromebooks as far as the internet goes? And
In the packet, you'll see a request for the technology.
that's what I
which
mean. We're going to
includes
get to
additional
that, right?
support,
Okay,
yes.
thanks.
Any other questions regarding Salisbury's budget request? Mr. Montanari, I think
All right, thank you.
you did a
Good
wonderful
night.
job. Thank you. Thanks to everybody who came tonight and presented and listened. We really appreciate it. Move to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?